What I have behind me is about a 1 acre food plot in what was some red pine plantation. So had that clear cut and that got sent off to the mill. But what I'm doing here with all the slashings that they left behind is I'm using the tractor and I'm building a berm. And I'm not doing it on all four sides, but what I'm looking at using that for is to screen the food plot. So I can have a ground blind. I've got an opening over there where I'm going to have a ground blind, and then I can use this berm of brush to get out of here with deer still in the food plot. That being said, if you're going to do something like that, you might want to check your area, because in some states there are some regulations on dealing with slashings because of the potential of fire. I'm not overly concerned here for the fact that I got a food plot on one side and I'm standing in a fire break right here. Now long term, I'm also looking at using evergreens to help screen this. So last year I actually planted some spruce. Here you can see one. Here's another one. So I've got some spruce planted in here. There's some red pine popping up. Here's a small spruce. Another spruce back here. So over time that will become the screen, but that's going to take quite a bit of time. The spruce doesn't grow that fast. There's some red pine in here that grows faster, but the problem with red pine is it can oftentimes lose its bottom branches if it gets shade, like you see with the trees that are around here. Where the spruce is going to hold that and provide a better long-term screen. It's just a slow process. So this is the short-term fix, and I'm using the tractor with some pallet forks to build this brush pile up. Plus I need to get rid of it out of the food plot so I can get that established. I'm going to have to get it limed. It's going to need a lot of lime. I'm going to get a soil test done, but we'll still get a food plot out of here, probably some type of blend with winter rye in it for this fall. So I'm standing out in this new food plot, and there's still a lot of work to do here, clearing up some of the slashings that were left behind from the logging. But an important step that also needs to happen is taking a soil sample. If you stop at your local co-op, oftentimes you can borrow a soil probe as well. If you don't have one, you can use a shovel. This is just a small one here. And what I want is about 6 inches of soil, and I want to get it from multiple spots, mix it all together, and then that's what's going to be my soil sample. But if you really don't know what your pH is and what macro and micronutrients your soil needs, the odds of your food plot being as successful as it could be isn't really that great. So soil sample, and getting a soil test is a real important step. So this takes out a core sample, and again we're going to want multiple ones. I already know this soil is going to need a lot of lime, partially because I've got other food plots on this property and I've done soil samples, but the other thing is sometimes the plants can tell you. And I've seen some blueberries here, and blueberries like acidic soil. The pines and oaks like more acidic soil, but I really want to get the pH to somewhere around 6.5. But again, I'm going to take multiple samples and mix it all together. Alright, now that we've got some samples from different areas within the field, just mixing them together, and then I'll use that to make my soil sample to send away. And this is some sandy soil, and if you don't have your fertilizer right on a sandy soil, you're not going to have the results you probably want in your food plot. When it comes to sandy soil, I generally like to fertilize less and more often, just because depending on the amount of organic matter, if the organic matter is low, you can't really hold on to much nitrogen at a time. But I know the pH is going to be low, but I'm going to spend the money on the lime before we spend the money on the fertilizer. Otherwise, you're just wasting a lot of fertilizer. So this bag actually has a line here, and this line is the level that I fill it up to. And so, you know, it's not a lot of soil, but you just want a good representation of the food plot or the field that you're working with. We just need to send it in and get our results, and then start amending the soil. This is another place where I used some of the slashings that got left behind from the logging. And what I have here is basically, it acts as two things. One, a blockade to prevent deer from going from one side of the food plot to the other. And the other thing it does is it's a little bit of a visual screen, because especially at deer's height, they're not going to be able to see from one side of the food plot to the other. So the idea is that they will come around this front side if they're going from this side to that side, and my blind's right over there, so this puts things all in bow range. And again, this right now isn't the prettiest thing to look at, but over time it will break down. And the other thing I'm going to do along here is I'm not going to plant all the way up tight to it, so I'll have some early successional habitat on both sides of this as well, and then I will on the back side of the food plot. And with the back side of the food plot, there's already some pines coming up, but we'll take a look at that next. So now I'm standing at the back end of the food plot, and I'm not going to plant this area. What I want is a soft edge, so I'm going to have some early successional habitat on the back side here, and that's going to do several things. For one thing, it's going to save me money, because I don't have to spend money on seed and fertilizer and such. The other thing is I'm not going to need to lime this back area, because the native plants are designed to handle the pH of this soil. And it's also going to make it more difficult for a deer that's back in the other pines there being able to see all the way into the food plot. So it's going to thicken up, it's going to take some time. But we already have some good stuff in the seed bank. What I have here is a cherry tree. Right now it's more of a shrub, the same with the oak, but now that we got sunlight in here, these can take off. So I do have some more cherry around, but I also have some young red pine. And initially I'll let those go. And they can be beneficial as long as they're not too tall with all their branches at the bottom dying, but that's going to help screen it up. But with the oaks, the cherries, and then just some natural forbs that'll jump in here over time, this is going to provide a lot more biodiversity. And this area here would be out of shooting range anyway, so we'll have the better, more desirable food during hunting season back there, but this will take some of that pressure off. So where I'm standing is a location where I'm going to have a ground blind, and when creating this new food plot and having the logging, we got a lot of slashing, so we've made basically brush piles along it, and not on all sides, but this is where I'm going to have the ground blind. So this is going to be an instant screen for this year to hide my movement. I'll have the door back here, and I'll have the windows open here, and I can get in and out of this using this as cover as long as I have the correct wind. And these brush piles over time will actually break down, and we'll actually start seeing some growth in here. And I'm going to take you over to see a couple other spots that I had brush piles, so you can see what over time they will become. But again, behind here I actually do have spruce planted and such that, you know, as this stuff degrades and those grow, you know, long term, that's going to be the screen. So behind me, it might not look like a brush pile, but this was a brush pile, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and we've got all kinds of vegetation growing, and a lot of it's good stuff. Here we've got some raspberries, and you can actually see how the deer browsed it, and we can actually see some fruit starting to get ready to go. We got hazelnut, and then I got a quaking aspen here, and we got quite a few quaking aspens because that was some of the stuff that was taken out of this area. But over time, this wood will rot, decompose, and vegetation will take over. So the other benefit of that is, especially with sandier soil like in this location, that wood, as it's decomposing, it can hold on to a lot of moisture better than sand can. So, you know, raspberries like a little more moisture. Hazelnut, you know, and the aspen, they're designed to do quite well up here already. But you can get crops or plants or forbs that would actually prefer it a little wetter to grow in these locations if the seed bank is there. But again, I haven't done anything to this other than we pushed this pile over years ago, and this is pretty much typical on what can happen when you know the time progresses. We'll take a look at another one. So here's another brush pile from about 5 years ago, where you can see one of the logs still existing, but some taller ones. But it's basically a hill, and you know the slashings and the stuff the loggers didn't take got pushed over here, and over time it's turned into a nice greenery. Again, we got some hazelnut here, a lot of raspberries coming in, some aspen. But you know, over time those brush piles can turn into this. So I've taken a soil test, and I haven't got the results yet, but I'm trying to get a jump on things because I already know this is going to be some acidic soil. So I got 2,400 pounds of lime that I'm going to be putting down. I've already put 600 pounds down, and I'm just hand spreading it, or you know, just ripping open the bag and walking around to get some of this out there. You know, obviously if you could get a lime truck in, that would be an easier solution, but I don't have that option. Another option would be pelletized lime, which is a lot cleaner to work with, and you could spread that with, you know, a hand spreader if you really wanted to, or one on the back of the tractor. But with the barn lime, you're a little more limited on how to spread it. The barn lime is cheaper than the pelletized lime, so there is a benefit there, but it does come with a dusty, dirty job, and you know, 50 pounds at a time. So like I said, I got 2,400 pounds I'm putting out here today. I'm sure there will be more coming, and I'm not, you know, this is an acre in size, but the whole thing's not going to get limed because some of it's going to be early successional habitat, so we're just going to let nature take care of that and not spend the money on the lime. But these have a vent, and so you just rip this open and then you go for a walk. So I just finished hand spreading 52 50-pound bags of lime, 2,600 pounds. And so this is about a half acre where I spread it, and if you do the math on that, that's almost 3 tons per acre, and I think that's going to get me in the ballpark. But again, the soil test is going to tell me. I know, you know, that's something a person really should do first, but based on the past food plots I've had in this area, I have a pretty good idea of where the pH is going to be. And that being said, the sooner you can get the lime in the ground or on the ground, the better, because it takes a while for it to work. So anyway, again, this is about an acre of a food plot, or an acre field that we cleared out, but the whole thing's not going to be in-planted food. Some of it's going to be early successional habitat, and that's going to reduce my lime cost and my fertilizer cost and my planting cost, and also give deer more biodiversity. You know, it's going to thicken up the edges to make them feel a little more secure to be in here during daylight hours. It's a dirty job, you know, hand spreading lime like this, but you know, you shouldn't have to do it every year. With sandy soil, you actually can get by with less lime, but you need to apply it more often. But I'm glad this part's done. I haven't decided if I'm going to do the other ½ acre this year yet or wait till next year, but I for sure wanted this ½ acre done because this is all going to be pretty much within bow range for me. But rain is scheduled coming up here this week, and it's about to get really hot, so I'm glad that I'm done with this portion of it.